Picture this. You're at a crowded nightclub, and across the room, you spot the one person you hoped you'd never meet face your best friend's boyfriend. The same guy who shattered her heart once before. The same guy she foolishly took back. And now he's walking straight toward you with that predatory smile, completely unaware that you know exactly who he is. What would you do? If you've ever wanted to see a cheater get exactly what they deserve, you're going to love this story. This is the kind of calculated, brilliant revenge that'll make you want to stand up and cheer. So hit that like button right now, subscribe if you haven't already, and buckle up. Because this tale of justice is going to be absolutely chef's kiss satisfying. Let me take you back to a time before smartphones ruled our lives. Before we could instantly text screenshots of betrayal. Before we could track someone's location or check their Instagram stories at 2 a.m., this was the era of landlines, pagers, and paper napkins with phone numbers scribbled in questionable handwriting. I had this friend, let's call her Sarah. Sarah was one of those genuinely good people. You know, the kind who sees the best in everyone, sometimes to her own detriment. She had this boyfriend, Jake, and oh man, where do I even start with Jake? Jake was tall, the kind of tall that made heads turn. He had that classic pretty boy face, chiseled jawline, perfect hair, the works. The guy looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne commercial, and he knew it. Oh, he KNEW. That's the dangerous part about guys like Jake. They know exactly what they have, and they use it like a weapon. From the photos Sarah showed me, I'd memorized his face. Not because I wanted to, but because every time she showed me a picture, there was this story attached. This was at the beach, he's so photogenic. Or, look at us at dinner, doesn't he look amazing? And every single time, I had to bite my tongue. Because I knew what Sarah didn't want to admit to herself. Jake was a cheater. Not a one-time mistake kind of cheater. Not an I was drunk and confused cheater. Jake was a serial, calculating, repeat offender. Cheater. About 6 months before my story really begins. Sarah caught him. She'd shown up unexpectedly at his apartment. You know, one of those sweet girlfriend moments where you want to surprise your man with his favorite takeout. Instead, she got the surprise of a lifetime. Another woman in his bed. In their bed, technically, since Sarah spent half her time there. I'll never forget the phone call. It was 11:30 at night, and my phone rang with that specific ringtone I'd set for Sarah. When I picked up, all I heard was sobbing. Not just crying that soul deep can't catch your breath, sobbing that only happens when your whole world collapses. He cheated. She finally choked out between gasps. I saw them. My blood boiled. I wanted to drive to his place right then and key his car. Slash his tires. Do something, anything, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused her. But Sarah, sweet, forgiving Sarah. She took him back. He cried. She told me a week later, her voice small and uncertain. He said he was drunk, that it was a mistake, that he loves me and only me. He promised it would never happen again. I remember the exact moment she said those words. We were sitting in her car outside a coffee shop, and I turned to look at her, really look at her. And I could see it, that desperate hope in her eyes. That need to believe the lie because the truth was too painful. Sarah, I said carefully, people don't cheat by accident. It's not like he tripped and fell into bed with someone else. I know, she whispered. But I love him. And everyone deserves a second chance, right? Wrong. So very wrong. But I couldn't make her see it. Not yet. From that moment on, I couldn't stand Jake. Not that I'd been his biggest fan before, but now he was an active threat to my friend's happiness. Every time Sarah mentioned his name, my jaw clenched. Every time she showed me a new photo of them together, smiling and working on their relationship, I wanted to scream. But I stayed quiet. I smiled. I nodded. I played the supportive friend because that's what you do, right? You let the people you love make their own mistakes, even when you can see the train wreck coming from a mile away. I had never actually met Jake in person. Somehow, despite Sarah dating him for over a year, our paths had never crossed. He was always too busy when Sarah wanted to introduce us. Looking back, that should have been red flag number, 15? 20? But all that was about to change. It was a Friday night, and my friends had dragged me out to this new club downtown. I wasn't really in the mood. It had been a long week at work, and honestly, I would have preferred sweatpants and a movie. But they insisted, and I caved. The place was packed. Bodies everywhere. Music thumping so loud you could feel it in your chest. Strobe lights cutting through the darkness. I was at the bar trying to order a drink and contemplating how long I had to stay before I could reasonably make an escape. And that's when I saw him. At first, it was just a feeling. You know that prickling sensation on the back of your neck when someone's watching you? I turned, scanning the crowd, and there he was. Jake, standing, maybe 20 feet away, leaning against a pillar with a drink in his hand. That same cocky smile from every photo Sarah had shown me, that same carefully styled hair, that same air of absolute confidence. My heart started pounding. And for a second, I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to march over there and call him out, tell everyone in earshot what a scumbag he was. But then a better idea started forming. I watched him for a moment, confirming what I suspected. He was scanning the crowd like a shark circling prey. His eyes lingered on women attractive, women with an intensity that made my skin crawl. And Sarah, who thought they were working on their relationship, she wasn't even a thought in his mind right now. He had no idea who I was. We'd never met, remember? And even though I'd seen dozens of photos of him, he'd probably never seen a single photo of me. I was about to become his worst nightmare. It didn't take long. Guys like Jake are predictable. Give them a pulse and a pretty face, and they'll take the bait every single time. Positioned myself strategically close enough to be noticed, far enough to seem uninterested. I made eye contact once, then looked away. Classic move. And just like clockwork, within 5 minutes, he was standing next to me at the bar. "Hey," he said, with that smooth, practiced tone that probably worked on dozens of women. "I couldn't help but notice you from across the room." "Oh, I bet you couldn't," I thought. Out loud, I played it cool. "Oh, really?" I said, giving him a small smile. Not too eager, just enough to keep him interested. "I'm Jake," he said, extending his hand. And there it was. Confirmation. It was definitely him. My best friend's boyfriend. The guy who'd promised her fidelity. The guy who was supposed to be home tonight, according to Sarah's last text saying he had work stuff to catch up on. "Nice to meet you, Jake," I said, taking his hand. "I'm Jill." Jill, a name I pulled out of thin air. Simple enough to remember for the night, but definitely not my real name. His eyes lit up that predatory gleam that guys get when they think they're about to score. It made my stomach turn, but I kept my face neutral, friendly even. "So, Jill," he said, leaning in closer than necessary, "are you here with anyone?" The question hung in the air. This was his screening process, making sure there was no boyfriend, no obstacle, no complication. "Just some friends," I said casually, gesturing vaguely toward the crowd. "Girls' night out, perfect." He grinned. And I swear, the way he said it, like my lack of a boyfriend was perfect for him, made me want to throw my drink in his face, but I had a better plan. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. Well, he talked. I mostly listened and laughed at the appropriate moments, nodding along as he bragged about his job, his car, his gym routine. Classic narcissist playbook. Every story was designed to impress, to demonstrate value, to make me think, wow, this guy is such a catch. Meanwhile, I was thinking about Sarah at home, probably curled up with a book or watching TV, completely oblivious to the fact that her boyfriend was hitting on random women at a club the entire time. I played my part perfectly. I touched his arm when he made a joke. I maintained eye contact. I asked questions about his interests. Every trick in the book to make him think he was winning. And then, right on schedule, he went for the close. "Hey, so ... he said, with that supposedly charming smile. "I'd really like to see you again. Can I get your number?" This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. Now, remember, this was before smartphones. Before you could just hand someone your phone and watch them tap in their number. Back then, exchanging numbers was a whole production. "Sure," I said, playing it coy. "Let me write it down for you." I grabbed a napkin from the bar. Those cheap paper cocktail napkins that every bar had stacked in little dispensers. I also grabbed a pen from my purse. And here's where the genius comes in. I wrote clearly and carefully on that napkin, Jill, and then Sarah's phone number. My best friend's number. The same number Jake called every single day. The same number programmed into his phone. The same number he should have recognized instantly. But here's the thing about guys. Like Jake, when they're out hunting, they're not thinking clearly. Add in the alcohol flowing through his system. The dim lighting, the loud music, the adrenaline of the chase, and critical thinking goes right out the window. I folded the napkin and handed it to him with a smile. "Don't lose it," I said playfully. "Trust me, I won't," he said, slipping it into his pocket without even glancing at it. He didn't recognize the number. He was too tipsy, too confident, too caught up in his own game to actually look at what I'd written. In my wildest dreams, I imagined he'd get home, pull out the napkin, and have that moment of horrified recognition. That he'd realize he'd been caught, that someone knew what he was doing, that maybe, just maybe, he'd feel even a tiny bit of shame. But I never actually thought he'd call. I mean, who would be that stupid? The next morning, I was having coffee and still buzzing with satisfaction about my little scheme when my phone rang. Sarah. Oh my God, she said the second I picked up, and I could hear it in her voice, that mixture of anger, hurt, and something else. Something almost like vindication. What happened? I asked, even though my heart was already racing. I had a feeling I knew. Jake called me last night at like 2 a.m. She said, drunk. And he asked for Jill. I almost spit out my coffee. The absolute idiot actually called Sarah's number, the number of his girlfriend, and asked for another woman. He asked for Jill. I repeated, playing dumb, but internally I was doing cartwheels. Yep. He said, hey, is Jill there? And I was so confused. I was like, who's Jill? Jake, this is Sarah, your girlfriend. And there was this long silence. And then he just started stuttering and making excuses. I could picture it perfectly. Jake, probably still a little drunk, suddenly realizing with dawning horror that he'd just called his girlfriend asking for another woman. The panic, the scrambling, the desperate attempt to backpedal. What did he say? I asked, gripping my phone tighter. He tried to say it was a wrong number, that he was confused, that he'd been given the number by some guy at the club as a prank. It was pathetic, Sarah said, and I could hear the disgust in her voice. Like, did he really think I was that stupid? No, Jake. She wasn't that stupid. Not anymore. I confronted him about everything. Sarah continued. I asked him why he was at a club when he told me he had work, why he was getting women's numbers, why he thought I'd believe his garbage excuses. And you know what? He had nothing. No real explanation. Just more lies on top of lies. What are you going to do? I asked, holding my breath. There was a pause. And then, in a voice clearer and stronger than I'd heard from her in months, I broke up with him. For good this time. I packed up all my stuff from his place this morning. I'm done. I wanted to cheer. I wanted to tell her right then and there what I'd done. But something held me back. This was her moment. Her decision. Her strength. I'm proud of you, I said instead. And I meant it. I should have done it months ago, she admitted. I wanted to believe he could change. But people like Jake don't change. They just get better at lying. Truer words were never spoken. The weeks that followed were tough for Sarah. Breakups always are. Even when you know you're making the right choice. There were tears. There were moments of doubt. There were nights when she almost called him, but she didn't. She stayed strong. And then, about 3 months later, something beautiful happened. Sarah met Marcus. She was at a bookstore. Her favorite place to decompress, when she literally bumped into him. Like physically knocked a book out of his hands in the philosophy section. They both bent down to pick it up. Their hands touched. They looked at each other, and yeah. It was one of those storybook moments. Marcus was everything Jake wasn't. Kind, genuine, successful without being arrogant about it. He worked in architecture, loved to cook, and had this gentle, thoughtful way of talking that made you feel like you were the only person in the world when he spoke to you. Their first date lasted 6 hours. Coffee turned into lunch, turned into a walk through the park, turned into dinner. Sarah called me that night, breathless and happy in a way I hadn't heard in years. I think I just met my person, she said, and she had. Marcus didn't play games. He called when he said he'd call. He showed up when he said he'd show up. He was transparent, honest, and clearly crazy about Sarah. Within a year, they were engaged. Within 2 years, married. I was there at the wedding, watching Sarah walk down the aisle toward Marcus. And I remembered that devastated phone call from that night when she caught Jake. The crying, the heartbreak, the way she'd questioned her own worth because of that scumbag. And now she was radiant, glowing, marrying a man who treated her like the queen she'd always been. It was at Sarah's bachelorette party, a few months before the wedding, that I finally told her. We were a little tipsy, laughing about bad ex-boyfriends. And someone brought up Jake. Remember that ridiculous Jill phone call? Sarah said, shaking her head. I never figured out who that was. Part of me always wondered if it was just karma. You know, like the universe setting up the perfect trap. The other girls laughed, but I felt this sudden urge to come clean. It had been over 2 years. She was happy. She was in love with an amazing man. The timing felt right. Actually, I said carefully, it wasn't the universe. Everyone got quiet. Sarah looked at me, confused. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. It was me. I was Jill. The confusion on her face deepened. What? So I told her everything. The club, recognizing Jake, the fake name, writing her number on the napkin, the whole beautiful, calculated scheme. For a moment to long, agonizing moments, Sarah just stared at me. I couldn't read her expression. Was she angry? Hurt that I'd never told her. And then she started laughing, not just a little giggle. A full, throw your head back, tears streaming down your face laugh. She gasped between laughs. You were Jill? I'm sorry I didn't tell you right away, I said, relieved but still nervous. Are you kidding? She interrupted, grabbing my hands. That's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. You're a genius. An absolute mastermind. The other girls were laughing now too, as the story sank in. I can't believe Jake was that stupid, Sarah said, wiping tears from her eyes. Your number? He called my number. The number he called every single day, and he didn't recognize it. He was tipsy, I offered, and distracted. He was an idiot, Sarah corrected. God, I wasted so much time on him. But if you hadn't, one of our other friends pointed out, you might never have met Marcus. Sarah's face softened at the mention of her fiancé. That's true. You know what? Jake cheating was the best thing that ever happened to me. It got me out of that toxic relationship and led me straight to the love of my life. She pulled me into a hug. Thank you, she whispered. Seriously, you saved me from wasting more years on that asshole. You're the best friend anyone could ask for. Looking back now, years later, I still think about that night at the club sometimes. I think about how close Sarah came to missing out on her real happiness because she was stuck with someone who didn't deserve her. I think about how one small, calculated act, writing a phone number on a napkin, changed the entire trajectory of her life. And I think about Jake. Whatever happened to him, I don't know, and I don't care. Guys like that never really changed. They just move on to the next victim, the next lie, the next betrayal. But here's what I learned from all of this. Sometimes being a good friend means more than just being supportive. Sometimes it means taking action. Sometimes it means being willing to do what needs to be done, even if it's unconventional. Was what I did manipulative? Maybe. Was it a little sneaky? Absolutely. But was it right? Hell yes, because at the end of the day, I didn't make Jake hit on a random woman at a club. I didn't make him ask for her number. I didn't make him call it at 2 a.m. while drunk. I didn't make him cheat in the first place. Jake made all those choices himself. I just helped bring those choices into the light. I gave karma a little nudge in the right direction. And honestly, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because real friends don't let their friends waste their lives on people who don't appreciate them. Real friends don't stand by silently while someone they love gets hurt over and over again. Real friends write phone numbers on napkins and let justice dial itself. So, there you have it. The story of how one napkin, one fake name, and one incredibly stupid drunk dial saved my best friend from a lifetime of misery with a serial cheater. If this story gave you that warm, fuzzy feeling of justice being served, do me a favor and smash that like button. Seriously, hit it like Jake hit on every woman in that club, and drop a comment below. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? Or better yet, have you ever pulled off something brilliant to help a friend? I want to hear your stories. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I've got more stories like this coming your way. Stories of karma, justice, and people getting exactly what they deserve. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't something you do to someone. Sometimes it's giving them just enough rope to hang themselves with. Stay petty, my friends, and stay subscribed.